Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Avidyne webinar. Today, we're going to be talking about Avidyne Atlas, your next-gen flight management system. I'm joined today by Bill Thompson. He is the Director of Business Aviation. And we're going to be going over a couple of things and why Atlas is really the best solution for your Part 25 aircraft. So a little bit of what we're going to be talking about today is first, we'll do a little introduction. We'll talk about what Atlas is. How can Atlas help you extend the life of your aircraft? And a lot of the benefits that Atlas can bring. What are some of the target aircraft that we have for Atlas? We're going to go over some of the features as well as some installation considerations. So when we get into what Atlas is and the solutions that it means to solve, there's really three things, right? There's three different types of limitations. There's design limitations, economic limitations, and operational limitations. So the system designs are either limited or made incompatible. The ability of these aged flight decks to meet the operational necessities of today's flight environments, especially under the FAA's Next Gen initiative and associated programs or other air agencies. We've got some system design limitations here. A majority of legacy EFIS systems, they're never originally designed for, nor over the years been upgraded by the manufacturer to support GPS approach operations. All right, so Bill, maybe you can chime in a little bit on as to some of the problems that you've identified over there in business aviation and
Sure.
how Atlas can really kind of bring that into the fold in modern day.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I'll be more than happy to actually pull this into focus. So as far as the ability to conduct GPS approaches are concerned, a majority of the legacy EFIS systems were never originally designed, nor over the years have had the upgrade path to support GPS approach. That's all the GPS approaches, whether it's LPV, LP, LNAV, LNAV plus V, all of them. So the approaches on the long-range nav channel, commonly understood as everybody, from everybody using the magenta needle, are challenged with either conflicts in approach scaling or just a complete lack of software that gives them the capability to do this. So the Atlas and the IFD series actually give the ability to the flight decks to open up all of the different airports and all the different approach capabilities that GPS entails.
Awesome, Bill. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. So what do we? I just muted myself. All right. So what are we talking about here? Well, legacy aircraft and orphaned fleets have intrinsic value that can make them viable platforms in today's business class and cargo markets. The intrinsic values include long service lives, lower operating costs, hull values that make economic sense, but they all have the same Achilles heel, right? Your avionics. So for this webinar, this discussion, legacy aircraft are going to be aircraft that are still providing a very active role in accomplishing today's business, passenger travel, cargo transportation, but they're not a singular integrated avionics suite. And this term legacy aircraft can be applied to aircraft that are considered orphan fleets or aircraft that don't have a direct channel or support arm for upgrades, making them relevant today. So just an idea of a couple of the aircraft that can benefit directly from Atlas include everything that you see here. So along with a number of other aircraft models that aren't listed, these aircraft make up a really large portion of the operating fleets today, and every one of these aircraft can directly benefit from the cost-effective solutions offered by Avidyne. Bill, I'm going to hand this over to you. You might have some extra points here that maybe you want to add. Maybe tell folks kind of what we're doing about some of the Lear fleets and maybe just a little bit more about LRN and SRN.
Yeah, sure. So one of the biggest points of contention here is just to dovetail back from the last slide, has to do with being cost prohibitive updates. And all of these aircraft are influenced by that same issue, which is how do I get my avionics suite upgraded and not break the bank? And that's important because there's a typical threshold somewhere around 20% of the whole value of an aircraft where it becomes either you're fully invested and you're going to keep this aircraft forever until you're done flying or until it's done in its service life, or it's not going to meet the metrics that you need for your business case to modify your aircraft. So that 20% value becomes really critical when you start looking at these airframes. They all have the same legacy long-range nav systems, whether it's old UNSs, GNS XLS, KLNs. There's a number of brands out there, but those are the majority of what we're talking about right now. And the same thing holds true. The interesting thing that Avidyne's done with the Atlas and the IFD series is that they've baked in the FMS along with a NavCom suite if it's required in your aircraft. So if your old, super old Proline 2s are getting long in the tooth, or there's other Primus 2s or other federated radios that are in that deck, the Atlas gives you the flexibility to either keep that system intact or replace it in whole. So there's a lot of flexibility in there. The aircraft that we're looking at in this slide right here, they all have at some point in parcel have been touched by an Avidyne system, and we are actually growing this all the time. We got questions about the Falcon 50, and when the question first came up, the only issue that we had that we couldn't contend with at the time was, what do we do with fuel management, because they're a 3-engine aircraft. Well, we've been able to solve that problem since that came up, so that's one of those ones that we have a focus on going into now. You'll see there we had a big jump in interest in the Lear markets. And I thought that was a really telling sign. And we have a couple of our operators, and that's why we have a hashtag there, or not hashtag, a asterisk next to the 45, is that we have an STC going on right now on the Lear 45 that's going to open up a dual Atlas system for those aircraft, and that's a 400+ fleet. But besides the jets, the turboprop market's making it's a big push for us in the turboprops. The caravans we're really doing well in those. Some of the oddball fleets like the Sherpas, they're out there. There's solutions for that aircraft too. We do King Air work. I mean, King Airs are kind of overdone at this point, but there's still a large fleet of them out there that don't need a full deck upgrade, but need to get something in their deck to make them compliant for today's flight environments. So between the 1900 and between the King Airs and the 1900s, that's a good market for us as well.
Awesome, Bill. Appreciate it. So the question that comes up is, why choose Atlas, right? So I'm going to let you talk a little bit on this slide, but the 4 main points that we want to really drive home is an agnostic integration. I'll let you talk about agnostic integration, some cost-effective solutions, the extensive applications, and it's being friendly to orphan fleets. So what can you kind of tell everybody about why they should consider or choose Atlas for their upgrades?
I think the biggest, the key point behind this is the 2 main bullet points there: agnostic integration and cost-effective solutions. I think they kind of go hand in hand. Over the years, other OEMs have gone from, hey, we'll work in any flight deck and we are here for you. And as popularity grew, they have said, okay, we're now going to make this a more integral flight deck where you have to have our equipment only, and that's the way it's going to work. All the OEMs have kind of done it that way, and you can see it through the progression of the EFIS systems, whether it's Honeywell, Rockwell, even Garmin to a large extent has been able to do this. But the issue ends up being is what happens when you're X amount of years down the road and support on that equipment is dried up, and it's not only integral, but it's got proprietary software in it. What that means is now I don't have a path for actually doing an agnostic system upgrade. I can't just grab something off the shelf that's come out last year or that's come out in the past several years and plug it into my deck, because I don't have the software to be able to make those communicate. So that's why these legacy flight decks are such a good value point for the Atlas systems. They're there. They're opened up to be able to talk 429, some 232, some older legacy ARINC protocols, but we're able to really kind of address those markets in a very concise way. And because of that, we're able to knock down the crazy costs of really expensive flight decks or really expensive FMS upgrades. And with the Avidyne's Atlas and IFDs, they can be done at a fraction of the cost. So STCs and DER approved 8110.3 installation approvals are easily realized for that.
It sounds like a lot of the problems that we have too is that we get approached by operators is look, I've got a fleet of aircraft that are running all the time. I have a high op tempo. I need a solution. I need an upgrade solution. I need to be able to fly these GPS approaches. I need to get into these airports that I can't fly into right now because I don't have the ability for GPS and LPV approaches. I need to be able to do that, but I can't take my aircraft down for months at a time to get this upgrade. So this is really kind of where we came in to integrate with those existing legacy systems to really bring that technology into an existing flight deck with the Atlas FMS. So moving right along, we'll get into a little bit of an overview of what Atlas is, what it can do for you, and the technology that we bring in, and what we can provide these aircraft for these, right? So Atlas, what is Atlas? It's a new multifunction SBAS FMS that sets a new standard for integration in turbine class navigation systems. Atlas provides full RNP and RNAV capability, including localizer performance with vertical LPV, lateral LNAV, VNAV, LNAV only, and approach procedures with vertical approach modes. We do that through our GLASS technology, our GPS legacy avionics support technology. We'll go into that in some future slides. What it can provide for you right now is full RNP, RNAV capability, LPV, LNAV, VNAV, LNAV only, APV modes. We've got hybrid touch, which we come to find out the operators that need this solution that we bring with Atlas absolutely love the ability for hybrid touch, combination of touchscreen and knobs and buttons. Really taken off in the Part 25 world. They're absolutely loving this. Moving maps with airspace, terrain, nav aids, airports overlay on your FMS. Options for radar, video, TAWS-B. The option for an integrated VHF comm or VOR localizer glide slope radio if we want an integrated solution. Traffic display from TCAS, ADS-B. FOQA support is a major part of this too. We've got some great FOQA integrations that we can do with the Atlas. Jeppesen georeference approach plates and airport diagrams, and of course, ForeFlight and other EFB integrations. So let's talk about GLASS technology. Like I said, GLASS stands for GPS Legacy Avionics Support. What that does is that will add LPV and RNAV approach capability for legacy EFIS systems designed before this technology. It provides a direct interface to existing ProLine 21, Honeywell Primus systems, and really some seamless integration. So Bill, what I'd like to do is I'd like for you to kind of expand on this just a little bit and talk about what GLASS is specifically, and just a little bit more for our Part 25 customers out there for what it can do for them.
Okay, so the EFIS systems that cannot accomplish or are cost prohibitive for accomplishing GPS approaches using the magenta needles in the long-range nav channel, GLASS gives us the ability of switching that signal to the VLOC channel in our box and putting it out on another 429 channel to your EFIS system, so that as far as your EFIS system is concerned, you're flying a ILS approach, but the system's actually designed so so you're flying green needles. But your system's actually designed so that it's flying a GPS approach. And what we do is, depending on the EFIS system, we add the required enunciations in there so that there's no confusion about what's being flown and what approaches you're on.
Awesome, Bill, appreciate it. So another thing that we do is really simple flight plan editing, right? One touch, Victor Airway, and jet route navigation. We do have geofill. If you're used to the IFD FMSs, you'll see that Atlas is incredibly familiar with our geofill. Waypoint nomination, really easy to read and understand clearance language, flight plan entry. SIDS and stars, we can fly those. We can enter those super easy. One touch holds at any waypoint, even the custom waypoints. Rubber band flight plan editing right here on the Atlas. We've got the ability in each Atlas FMS to store 99 flight plans with 128 different waypoints for each flight plan. We can store those all in each Atlas. So You've got 2 atlases, you've got double the amount of flight plans that you can edit for that in case you wanted to. So we talked about hybrid touch, right? So with hybrid touch, of course, we have the ability for touch screen and knobs and buttons on the IFDs, very similar. Just about anything you do on the touch screen, you can do with knobs and buttons. So with Atlas, we've taken that on-screen keyboard on the IFDs and brought that into a full QWERTY physical keyboard, plus the ability for touch screen and knobs and buttons, all on the Atlas units themselves. We've got the moving map here. So the flight plan is displayed over that map. We can display that map in north up, heading up, track up, simple one-touch orientation. We actually do that with the bottom right knob there. The terrain-based map, we have that ability to overlay that on the map too. Customizable map overlays of off-route waypoints, nav aids, and special use airspaces. And of course, our customizable data blocks here. Now we can see we've got the airspace on our map. We've got terrain that we'll be able to show there as well. Airports and airport information right there on the map, and of course all of our nav aids, and all those are completely customizable. I can filter these out if I want to. I can completely change how these show up with my map zoom, whether that be pinch zoom or I turn zoom in and out with my knob. I can show all of these different things and filter them out in certain layers, so completely customizable there. We've got the ability for optional radar and video inputs. This is one of the 2 different options. If you look on the left side, you'll see our radar overlay here. Now you can see this is a dedicated radar page. I can show this on the map as well. So I can have a radar overlay on my map, I can see. That supports the RDR 2000 series digital radar. It does have vertical profile support, and it can replace legacy indicators or act as a repeater display for my existing radars. Another thing here is the video. So I can accept any RS-170 input from any compatible camera or video source. That is a hardware modification. We'll be able to display that on a dedicated video page on the Atlas himself. So if I have a camera in the front, the back, if I have infrared, if I have thermal cameras, as long as I'm getting an RS-170 feed into the Atlas, I can show it on the video tab on my Atlas displays. And of course, optional TAWS-B, we do have that as an option as well, in case we do want integrated TAWS inside the boxes. I know a lot of you guys, and Bill, maybe you want to chime in on this as well, but most of these installations already have an external TAWS to them. We do want to let you know that we do have the ability to provide a TAWS unlock in the Atlas boxes themselves. So Bill, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that before I moved on, but
I think the only thing to add to that is you made a good point there. A lot of these aircraft are already incorporated with either a TAWS-B or even a TAWS-A solution. So this I kind of see as more of the Outlander fleets, the ones who have either been using a very minimal TAWS, maybe they have a 560 or something, KGP 560, something like that. But if you're looking at this would not be the Mark 5, Mark 7, Mark 22, depending on your platform. That would not be a replacement for this. Would not be a replacement for that, but it's a very good option for if you're looking for TAWS-B. If you're not interested in the TAWS-B option, you can disable the alert systems in it and just use the map scenes, the synthetic vision screens for situational awareness.
Yeah, so it's really good for people to know that if you don't have that solution, we can provide that. All right, so we did mention an optional VHF Navcom. So Atlas does have the ability to provide an optional integrated VHF communication and nav radio in the same box. VHF COM capability provides a powerful 16-watt transceiver with frequency nomination and station identification. It also includes the ability to monitor the standby channel at the same time as the active channel. So what we can do there is we can monitor our standby and we can listen to our standby at the same time that we're listening and talking on our active channel. Integrated VHF nav system provides VOR navigation as well as localizer and glide slope approach capability, fully integrated and automated with the FMS. It can automatically decode the identification of VORs and localizers. You can see here I have love clearance delivery and love ground. It's very simple, plain English readout right there on the screen. VORs and localizers, and ensures that the proper frequency is tuned as part of the automated approach process. Bill, is there anything else that you want to add here for the optional VHF Navcom and Atlas?
The only thing I really think needs to be added in this part of it is this just goes to show the ability for us to tailor the solution to the aircraft. If it's an FMS you need and the existing radio stack does not need to be replaced or for whatever reason, then we can march on with that. But if there's power in the pack that we can get rid of an awful lot of remote boxes and everything's incorporated into our radio stack, it works well. It's a seamless operation.
Awesome, Bill. Appreciate it. All right, so TCAS and ADS-B display, we can show that on the SBAS or TAWS page, as well as the kind of bird's eye map page overlay as well. That'll display active and blended traffic on a moving map and SVS pages from TCAS, ADS-B, and it uses that standard symbology. If TCAS can't be blended with TIS-B traffic, Atlas uses a TCAS and FIS-B weather displays also. So what does that look like for your FIS-B weather? And Bill, I'll bring you in here towards the end, but on your map page, you've got a weather overlay here, and we can actually pick our different FIS-B weather layers, and we can decide what we want to show on the map. Another really cool feature about this as well, if you're looking on your flight plan page and you see those little METAR flags on the right, you actually tap on one of those, we'll get the METAR information coming up from that particular location. So a really, really simple way to show FIS-B weather on the Atlas. Bill, is there anything you want to add for FIS-B weather?
No, FIS-B weather, we're in good shape with that right now.
Okay, great. So fuel management, that's another big thing. So we have the ability to bring in and display fuel totalizer information, but we've also got fuel range rings. So that'll show a 45-minute reserve. That's your green ring. And then once we get below our 45-minute reserve, those rings now become a hatched yellow and red around there. So we can see that on the Atlas. Another great thing is FOQA support. So we mentioned this a little bit earlier. FOQA, of course, if you don't know, stands for Flight Operations Quality Assurance. So with a device like the AirSync, we can actually feed that all the information that we need for our FOQA programs for our operators to be debriefed with something like Cloud Ahoy to bring that information right into that app for our FOQA program. So really tight integration with that. Really, really awesome technology, which supports all of our operators and our fleet's FOQA programs that we have there. Bill, is there anything you want to add on FOQA?
No, that
okay.
You did a good job of that. Thanks.
Okay, so moving on, Jeppesen charts. Of course, we've got georeference terminal and approach charts and airport diagrams that we can display there as well. And of course, we have the ability for some integration with wireless integrations, Wi-Fi on our iPad with IFD 100 and other EFBs. But you can easily update your Jeppesen charts via a USB port. Nothing proprietary about our data uploads and downloads. It's done via a simple USB stick. Right there on the bottom center of the Atlas bezel itself is a USB port. So any USB that can be formatted to FAT32 will work, preferably under 32 gigs. We'll be able to upload those charts on the chart cycle schedule. We talk about ForeFlight integration and really some other third-party EFBs that we can do that with as well. The Atlas, as well as the IFDs and even Helios, do all come with built-in Wi-Fi, and that will make for a really easy flight plan transfer with some of your favorite EFBs. ForeFlight being kind of the biggest one, but we do integrate with other third-party EFBs. Of course, we make our software development kit available to those third-party EFB developers, where we can get some integration with there. So you've got your ForeFlight there. We use that all the time. Maybe your Part 135 outfit uses that a lot. They've got an EFB that they like to use. ForeFlight usually being the main one, but we can certainly integrate with that. So with that, let's get into some of the specifications. And Bill, this is kind of really your slide here, bud. So if you want to kind of go into some of the specifics, especially about some of the certification stuff. I know we're going to talk about a little bit later and some of the specifics on the installs, but just kind of a brief rundown of what Atlas is about, what it looks like, what it's designed to do, and all that. So I'll give that off to you.
So the Atlas is designed to be a replacement for a legacy FMS CDU. We have an awful lot that went into this. One of the ideas behind this, the architecture, was to be able to replace a dzus-mounted LRU with our box, and our box works well with this in this scenario, because if we can either do a side-by-side with the dual Atlas system, we can do an Atlas to an IFD system, in which case everything is synchronized, so all the information is passed back and forth very seamlessly. The six, I mean, we've talked about it before. It's really the latest of today's technology. The 16-watt transmitters, everything's highest Dow levels required, and we'll talk about the Dow level requirements in a few minutes. But one of the most important things to really understand about an Atlas is that it's a certified single FMS approved solution for LPV, for GPS approach operations. So I don't need additional equipment to make that work.
Awesome, Bill.
Yeah, thanks.
So now we're going to get into installation considerations, right? So a really, really cool thing about what we can do with this. So of course, with the Atlas, it does require a TSO C190 WAS antenna, and that unlocks all classes of GPS operation. For single pilot IFR, of course, you need GPS approach enunciators on the pilot side only. Now, of course, for dual pilot operations, then you need to put enunciators on both sides. Now, because we only need one GPS, and Bill backed me up on this, because we can tailor a solution, an installation solution for our single pilot IFR operators. We're only needing to add one set of enunciators on the pilot side. But for dual pilot operations, of course, we can certainly do that on the co-pilot side as well.
And that's all true. And to the point of that, one of the most significant points of that is that we can't guesswork our way through what your operational requirements are as the owner operator of these aircraft. It might be that single pilot operations all you need, and even if it's a dual pilot operated, if it's a dual pilot certified aircraft, we're going to put systems in on both sides. But if you have a single pilot operated aircraft or certified aircraft, but your 135, whatever it is, your flight environment requires you to have dual pilots, we'll set this thing up so that it's available on both sides of the cockpit, so either side can fly fully capable.
Thanks, Bill. Let's talk about redundancy. So other systems and older systems required 2 FMSs for GPS approaches, or a single FMS with an LPV monitor. By removing those 2 FMSs and putting in dual Atlas, because Atlas is certified TSO C146D for Gamma 3 operations, and because only one Atlas is required for GPS approach, by removing those 2 older FMSs and putting in Atlas, you instantly introduce true redundancy with a dual Atlas installation. Is there anything else you wanted to add to this, Bill?
I guess the way to best describe what we're talking about here is, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, but I've seen it in operational work where it wasn't understood until a failure happened. And you're flying along with your dual, and I'm just going to call it out right now, but you're flying along with a dual UNS, and based on system limitations in their design, they require both of them to work. So if one of those goes down, you are no longer capable of you're no longer legal to fly an LPV approach or a GPS approach for those, in case it happens to be an LP or whatever. So our box, the Atlas system, doesn't have that limitation. One box is completely certified to do all of that, and two of those give you the full redundancy that Mike just talked about.
All right, let's get to the fun stuff, Bill. Let's take a look at some installation photos. So here's a Lear 55 with an existing EFIS 86L. And let's go to the, yeah, sorry, go ahead, Bill.
No, this was actually a very interesting one, because there was some installation and design challenges that had to be met. But the interesting part about this one is that the original installation for this, the operator called us today, absolutely freaking loves what we've done with it, has asked us for more upgrades, and he's buying another jet that he wants to do the same installation on. So and this is a cross-continental operator. He's actually established in the UK and travels to the US often.
Sounds like that upgrade made perfect sense to him. Let's see what that looks like on a block diagram. So Bill, this is kind of one of the more complicated installations or what that would look like. And the reason why we put that up here is to show you what one of the more complicated ones would look like. So in a lot of cases, it's not this convoluted here, but anything you want to talk about specifically on this one?
Yeah, this one was a little bit of a unique scenario because the EFIS 85L does analog digital, and it also its primary interface for this is an A-Rank 560. I think it's a 571, I think is what it is, interface, and that had some unique challenges that actually required us to use the KA90 converter versus anybody else's converter. But again, once this was all put together, I mean, it flew great. The FAA flight test analyst was very impressed with how the whole system worked as a. It didn't seem like a bolt-on. That's actually probably the biggest part of all of these scenarios that we need to discuss, is that it needs to feel like it was part of the solution of the flight deck and not something that was just thrown in there to put a Band-Aid on for today to get us through to the next level. This is the solution. So that's what
we mean by seamless integration, Bill. That's right. All right, so these next two are just some examples here of some other installations that we've done. I won't get into the block diagrams of these, but just to show you what we can do. This next one's a Citation 7 with had a dual app.
Lost you there, Mike.
Hey, and we're back. So here's a Citation 7 with a dual Atlas and a SBAS 8000 system. Bill, I don't know if you got any specifics on this particular installation, or if you want to touch on that before I move on to the Embraer, but anything you want to add here?
Yeah, the interesting thing about 650 owners is it's not a large fleet of these aircraft, but the owners love these airplanes, and so they're well maintained. They're still viable planes today, but in this case, this one had GNS XLSs in it. And there was no path to get them into today's LPV world. So the Atlases gave them that opportunity. And as you can see, it's a good fit in that cockpit.
I think it looks great. Let's check this. Let's look. The Embraer 145. Single Atlas with a Honeywell Primus system.
So this one's cool because this is a test bed program right now, and is using an additional data converter for us to make this deck work. But this actually is opening up the Primus 1000 decks to us, and this was our second test of the day. We did one on a Lear 45, and then this test here, the owner of the Lear said, "Hey, while you're over there, would you mind taking a look at our Embraer at our 145 and see if there's anything you could do with that?" And that evening, we actually had the system plugged in, and we're actually had needles displayed, and we're well on our way to making that our next cert deal.
Pretty exciting stuff, Bill. All right, so let's move on. Move on to certifications. All right, so we've got STC approvals for Part 23 and Part 25. There they are there, and of course, DR 8110-3 approval for electrical engineering and AFMS. Bill, if you want to touch on this before we move on to the Q&A portion.
Yeah, sure. So the big part about this is that we do have aircraft quite proliferated on the Part 23 STC. The Part 25 is actually is very limited to the Citation 560 models, which we're continuing to add on right now. But what we're doing in the meantime is we're working with a lot of DER approval data and for the electrical and system flight manual supplements. And the reason that is until we get to either critical mass in the amount of data that we have where we can turn it into STC information, or we have an actual STC project. The idea in our solutions here is not to keep the aircraft down to for an extended period of time, or to make it so complex that the aircraft goes off it becomes a long-term project, because these aircraft are revenue generating aircraft. And that's probably the key element here is keep it simple, keep it down for as short as possible, and maximize the effort on the backside.
That's right. That's right. We hit all those important parts that our customers absolutely need to have met, right? They minimal downtime, reasonable cost, maintaining their profitability, maximizing their profitability, and a viable solution for the future, especially for the next gen program. So with that, I'll open it up for some questions. Will Reichert has been fielding our questions in the chat. What do you got for us, Will? We got any unanswered questions so far?
Sorry about that. Was trying to find the mute button. We do not have any questions.
Okay. Well, great. Of course, for everybody watching, if you have any questions after this webinar, feel free to reach out to us over at tech support at avidyne.com, pilot support at avidyne.com, sales at avidyne.com, marketing at avidyne.com. Feel free to reach out to us. This webinar will be posted up onto our webinar replays page on avidyne.com, and will also be up on our other media channels as well. So I appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to come spend some time with us and allow us to tell you all about Avidyne Atlas. We will see you guys in the next one. Have a great day.